So I haven't recorded footage of them actively breeding in a while, or trying to anyway. So this is definitely courtship displays. As you can see, my male, this is my larger male. The smaller one, he's over here kind of hanging out. He does the same thing, but he's climbed on her back and he's actively trying to breed with her. He just recently styled her. Obviously, as you can see, he stopped. But they do this head vibration motion and then really fan their frills in an effort to get them to breed. I think me standing here has kind of spooked him because he stopped. Now he's paying attention to me versus continuing what he was doing. Or maybe it's the camera. I'm not too sure. But the tank's doing well. There's a little bit of algae on the glass, so it looks a little hazy right here in this space. Everybody's good. I tried adding sand up to the top up there. That didn't quite work just because the sand is a little too light, so it was getting pushed out and blown around. I've got a handful of hill stream loaches. I think I put 5 in here, and then you can see one maybe as it darts around, or 2 of them as they dart around up there on top of that log, the furthest log to the back. One just swam up. There's another one kind of hiding out again on that back log in the flow. And there should be at least 1 or 2 more in here. They usually hang out on the back panel. And I also added 12 autosynchronous catfish because they're too small for the turtles to waste their time trying to catch and eat. And then the autosynchronous have actually done a pretty decent job up until recently to keep the glass clear. They haven't done much for the hair algae that's growing on the wood, but they are keeping the glass in the background fairly clean. There's also a small population of bladder snails. So I've had, in the same time frame, I've had my severums, the fish in here, they've all spawned at least once, or at least paired up. There's a pair that typically guards this rock. There's a pair that guards that rock, and both of these 2 pairs have laid. And then there's a pair that hangs out in the background on the rock pile. And I can only assume, I can't see obviously, I can only assume they've bred as well. From what they're at least, the severums are at least 5 years old. They've bred several times, just never been successful in getting them past the egg stage. They have eggs, then they typically eat them after about a day or 2. So, not sure what that's about. Not really trying to breed severums, not in this tank anyway. I'm not stripping them of fry or of eggs. I'm not doing any of that mess. So, not quite the plan. It's been 3 weeks since the last major water change that I've done. I'm kind of letting the tank do its thing, and then hoping that these plants will start taking over a lot more strongly. The plants up here, I've added some up there. I'm hoping that they'll take over a lot more in order to help with filtration. So I'm trying not to do water changes as heavy as I was before. When I was doing water changes, again, the water volume, because it's approximately 31 to 33 inches of water from the bottom to the top to the water level, I was doing, or approximately 30 to 31 inches, yeah. I was doing 80% water changes. I was literally draining it down to the top of this rock, to the top of the rock, and filling it back up just to keep up with the tank while it was trying to cycle. At this point, it's been set up for at least 5 or 6 months, or actually a little longer, consistently with water. The only time I do water changes at this point is when I add the feeders. And that's only because typically when I get them, there's usually a lot of die off the first day or so until they kind of balance out. And then in order to keep the bacteria and the fungi down, to keep my ornamental fish healthy, I do massive water changes and add salt just to make sure everything stays relatively balanced. What more can I say? Everybody's doing well. Everybody's healthy. The female did lay 2 eggs, only 2, and then she's consistently laid about 2 to 4 eggs instead of, 7 to 12. She's consistently laid 2 eggs. She laid 2 eggs around the 16th of June. Oh, I'm sorry, of May. I've got them in the incubator, but from what I can tell, there's no signs of life. I doubt the males have successfully bred her in a while. I don't think she's let them. I'm still going to try and come up with some way to get her to haul out. But I got to rethink it, since the sand with the amount of flow I've got going through this thing isn't quite going to cut it. I'll take you up top and show you what it looks like. The sand is basically working as a sand filter and is bubbling, which is good for the water, or good for filtration. It's keeping everything well aerated. If you look in the back over there, you can see, you may be able to see. You can see the sand churning and bubbling and percolating, which is keeping a lot of the solid waste down. But then it's not good for me to try and build up sufficient layer for her sand bed for her to lay in, which is why I've got to come up with something else. I guess it's all right if she's laying in the water, because the eggs should still be viable as long as I can catch them within supposedly the first 24 hours of her laying. 12 to 24 hours of her laying. As long as I can scoop them out the water within that timeline, it should be fine. However, like I said, these eggs aren't showing any signs of being viable. I didn't see them really chalking, and then I definitely haven't seen any veins in the eggs, and it's been almost a month. So I'm gonna keep incubating just like I've always done until they start to show signs of mold, or they really just start to turn sour or gross, and then see what happens. 200 days is supposed to be incubation. There's a possibility that Mata do have a diapause period, but I can't confirm. I've only been successful in getting them to pass or to actually show signs of growth and of life just the very first time that I collected eggs in a makeshift incubator that ended up flooding out the eggs based off of the way I had the incubator set up. I've since bought a real incubator, and then I've been trying since, finally getting back to it, just not very successful. So here's an update. I was trying to show some of them their courting behavior, but then me being in front of the glass and probably talking causes them to stop. So I'll go ahead and cut this short, or I'll go ahead and stop this video. Everybody's doing well. Everybody's healthy. Still trying to make progress and figure out what's going on. It's just not too much to do or update on them every day.